chosen one. Everything seems quiet now, almost too quiet. But this silence, it's sacred. It's not the absence of movement, it's the breath of heaven holding you still before the shift. You have been asking why things feel delayed. Why what was promised seems to linger just beyond your reach. Yet, this pause is not punishment. It's divine rhythm. You are standing in a holy in-between. The space between the promise and its fulfillment. God often hides his greatest works inside stillness. Think of the painter before the first stroke, the conductor before the first note, the dawn before the first light breaks the horizon. That's where you are, the hush before everything changes. There was once a man named Elias. He had a vision, one so vivid it felt etched into his bones. But years passed, and nothing looked like what God had shown him. His friends called him foolish. Doors that once swung open now slammed shut. Every attempt to push forward ended in exhaustion. One night, sitting alone under a flickering lamp, he whispered, "Maybe I missed it." But something deep within answered, "No. The vision is still alive. It's just waiting for its appointed season." Months later, the very dream he thought had died bloomed before his eyes, not as he imagined, but better, stronger, purer, chosen one. Your story mirrors his. The delay is not denial, it's divine design. The pause is God's way of ensuring that when the time comes, you will not just arrive, you will reign in what he's prepared. Heaven does not rush destiny because eternal things are never built in haste. According to the words in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 3, verse 1, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. Let that truth settle deep. You are not late. You are right on heaven's time. The waiting is shaping you, sanding down pride, building endurance, teaching you to hear his whisper even when nothing moves. You may feel buried, but seeds are buried too, and only buried things break forth into life. Think of this moment like standing on the shore while the tide pulls back. To the untrained eye, it looks like retreat. But those who know the rhythm of the sea understand the water is gathering strength to return with greater force. The same is true for you. Heaven has pulled you back only to propel you forward. In this pause, God has been refining your vision, stretching your faith, detoxing your heart from distractions. You've learned to find peace not in progress, but in presence, and that is the greatest preparation of all. Because when the floodgates open, you won't be shaken by the speed of change. You'll move with grace through it. There's a sacred art in waiting. It's not passive, it's powerful. It's saying, "I trust you, even when I can't trace you." It's choosing stillness when every part of you wants to rush. It's holding your sword steady when you long to swing it. But when the trumpet sounds, and it will, you'll be ready, sharpened by patience, anchored in purpose. So do not curse the quiet. It's the womb of your next season. The silence that surrounds you is not empty, it's full of whispers, strategies, and blueprints from heaven. And soon, what was hidden will be revealed. What was delayed will be delivered. And what was promised will become visible. Right now, lift your eyes. The horizon is glowing faintly. It's not sunset. It's sunrise. You're not at the end. You're at the edge. The stillness is about to break open into sound, movement, and fulfillment. If this word stirs something inside you, pause and acknowledge it. Leave a simple one in the comments as a sign of alignment. Then, if it resonates deeply, share it with someone else who's waiting for their moment. You might be the reminder they need that their season is still coming. And yes, subscribe. Not for numbers, but to stay connected to this divine journey of purpose and awakening. For now, rest in this truth. Heaven hasn't forgotten you. It's finalizing your arrival. The divine pause is not the end. It's the countdown to the beginning. Let peace settle in your chest like morning light, spilling over calm waters. The waiting has been holy, the silence sacred. You are moments away from the sound of fulfilled promise. Heaven is aligning footsteps and futures. What once felt paused will suddenly unfold. Stay watchful. Stay faithful. The promise long delayed is now rising. The air itself seems to shift as destiny draws near. Every hidden seed within you begins to tremble with life. This is your unveiling. Step forward into what heaven prepared. You have walked through hidden years, the seasons that few saw. Yet, heaven recorded every moment. There were days when your prayers felt like whispers into the void, when your faith stood trembling, unsure whether to keep believing or to let go. But what you thought was silence was actually God shaping you in secret. The hidden years have never been wasted. They have been the forge where your strength was born. Every chosen one walks through obscurity. Before the crown, there is always a cave. Before the promise, there is always preparation. David tended sheep long before he held the throne. Joseph managed prisons before he managed palaces. These stories are not ancient myths. They are blueprints. The same God who trained them in hiddenness has been training you too. Think of how gold is refined. It doesn't shine instantly. It endures fire. The heat exposes impurities that no eye could see before. In the same way, the fiery trials of your past were never meant to destroy you. They were designed to define you. The secret pain you carried, the lonely nights you survived, those were heaven's classrooms. There was a young man named Caleb, gifted but unseen. He poured himself into his calling with quiet excellence. Others were noticed, promoted, celebrated. He remained in the background, doing his best in silence. One day, while he was cleaning up after another's success, a mentor approached and said, "The hidden ones are the ones heaven trusts." Caleb didn't understand until years later, when an opportunity came that required integrity and skill forged only in obscurity. He stepped forward, ready, and heaven's timing met his preparation perfectly. Chosen one, you have lived your own Caleb years. You have been hidden, not because you were unworthy, but because you were too precious to expose prematurely. God covers what he values. Like a seed in the soil, you were buried for preservation, not for punishment. The darkness has been your protection. Sometimes you asked, "Why can't anyone see what I carry?" But heaven answered with stillness, for it was more important that you see him first. Visibility without intimacy is a trap. It births pride, not power. God loved you too much to let you be celebrated before you were rooted. There is a quiet nobility in hiddenness. It is where your motives are purified, where your dependence is deepened, where your obedience is tested without applause. It is in these unseen years that your foundation becomes unshakable. The applause of men fades quickly, but the approval of heaven lasts forever. You may not have noticed it, But each hardship added another layer to your strength. Every rejection built resilience. Every unanswered prayer taught you patience. Every lonely night deepened your compassion for others. These invisible qualities are what will sustain you when the spotlight arrives. The prophet Isaiah once wrote, chapter 45, verse 3, "I will give you the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places, that you may know that I, the Lord, who call you by your name, am the God of Israel." What a mystery, treasures in darkness. It means that the very place you thought was void of life was actually filled with divine deposits. The pain hid purpose. The struggle hid strength. Every hidden year was a sacred investment from heaven into your destiny. Picture an artisan sculpting marble. Each strike of the chisel seems destructive, but the artist sees the masterpiece inside the stone. That's how God has been with you. Every loss, every delay, every unanswered question was a precise strike, removing what didn't belong, revealing who you really are. When you look back, you'll realize that the hidden years were not a detour, they were the foundation. The lessons learned there cannot be taught in public light. They are whispered only in secret between you and your Maker. And when you step into your promised season, people will marvel at your strength, unaware of how deeply your roots run beneath the surface. So, if you are still in the hidden place, do not despise it. The hidden ones are heaven's most dangerous weapons, silent, steady, and forged in fire. God never wastes preparation. The same hands that held you in obscurity will soon lift you into visibility, not to display your glory, but His. Your story is proof that unseen seasons shape unstoppable souls. You are the product of every trial you endured without witnesses, every tear you cried without explanation. Heaven saw it all, recorded it all, and is now preparing to reward it all. There will come a day when you'll look back and whisper, "Now I understand." Until then, keep your heart soft and your faith alive. The hidden years are holy years, and their fruit will soon make sense. The weight you've carried was never random. It was the weight of a mantle, something sacred, something heaven placed on your life long before you understood it. You were never just surviving, you were being entrusted. There's a difference between being chosen and being called. Many hear the call, but few carry the weight. The mantle does not rest lightly. It presses, molds, and stretches. It separates you not to punish, but to prepare. There was a woman named Leora whose kindness filled every room, yet her life seemed marked by struggle. She watched others move easily through open doors while she stood before walls that would not move. One evening, weary and near tears, she asked, "Why me?" And in the stillness, she sensed an answer, not a voice, but a knowing. Because what you carry must be refined before it can be released. That night she stopped resenting her battles. She started understanding them. Each hardship was God's hand strengthening her shoulders for the weight of what was coming. You, too, have been trained under invisible pressure. Heaven trusted you with burdens others could not bear. The loneliness that crushed others only deepened your roots. The rejections that broke others made you discern who truly walks with you. The very heaviness you questioned has been the proof of your calling. As written in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 20, verse 9, His word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot. That verse describes you perfectly, the word of God burning within. Uncontainable, undeniable. Even when you tried to live normally, heaven would not let you. The fire inside refused to dim. The weight of the mantle demanded expression. Imagine a torchbearer in a dark valley. The flame they carry both guides and exposes. It illuminates the path for others, but also reveals every flaw in the bearer's own steps. Carrying divine light is never easy. It costs comfort. Yet that's why you were chosen, because you can endure the refining heat without letting the flame die. This mantle has made you different. You feel things others overlook. You sense shifts before they happen. You carry compassion so deep, it sometimes feels like pain. That's not weakness, it's assignment. You were built to stand between heaven and earth, to feel the tremors before others hear them, to intercede before the storm breaks. Don't despise the weight. It's evidence that heaven trusts you. You were not overlooked, you were over-prepared. While others run freely, you move carefully. Not because you're behind, but because your steps are measured by heaven. And now, the time is near when that inner fire will no longer be contained. The words, the ideas, the revelations you've held in silence will find their release. The mantle you've carried in secret will soon be visible, not as pride, but as purpose fulfilled. Like a mountain bearing snow through winter, you have held the weight of potential. When spring comes, the melting waters will flow as rivers of influence, nourishing dry places. Your waiting has not been wasted. It has stored what others will soon drink from. The mantle isn't for status, it's for service. It's what allows you to carry healing into broken spaces, wisdom into confusion, and peace into chaos. It's what keeps you standing when others fall. So, if you felt heavy, misunderstood, or isolated, remember this: heaven never lays a mantle where there is no capacity to bear it. The weight proves your strength, and your strength proves your selection. Pause here and breathe. The same God who placed the fire in you will not let it consume you. He will teach you to carry it with grace. Now, write in the comments, I carry fire. No, because that declaration is not just words, it's a recognition. You're acknowledging the divine assignment within you. You're saying, I know what I hold, and I will not bury it anymore. When you speak it, heaven echoes it. Your story, your scars, your silence, they've all been training you for the moment when the weight becomes wings. Soon, what pressed you down will lift you higher. You will not break under the mantle, you will burn brighter because of it. And when that fire moves through you, it won't destroy, it will define. You'll look back and realize that every burden was an initiation, every ache, a prophecy preparing you for revelation. Nothing has been wasted. So when you whisper, I carry fire, understand this: you're agreeing to walk in divine boldness, to let your light expose shadows, to lead others toward hope. The fire within you is heaven's answer to darkness. You remember the doors that closed, each one slamming shut as if heaven itself turned its face away. Opportunities you were certain were yours slipped like sand through your fingers. You knocked, prayed, waited, and still the hinges did not move. It felt cruel, almost personal, as though you were being punished for believing too much. But now, as the pieces come together, you see what you could not before. Those closed doors were not rejection, they were redirection. There are moments when God protects you by saying no. It doesn't sound like mercy at the time, it sounds like silence. But mercy often wears the mask of disappointment. The divine hand sometimes leads by closing paths that would have led you to destruction. What seemed like a loss was actually God blocking the exit to your purpose. You once thought that a missed chance meant you weren't worthy. But heaven was working from another angle. God was saying, if you step through that door now, you'll compromise what I'm building in you. You couldn't see it then because the room looked bright. But the light in that space wasn't meant for you. There was a man named Micah who had prayed for a partnership that promised success. Every sign pointed to yes. The agreement was written. The plans were made. And then, suddenly, the opportunity collapsed. Micah was devastated. Years later, he discovered that the very company he wanted to join had hidden corruption that would have destroyed his reputation. What felt like loss had been salvation in disguise. You have your own Micah moments. Closed doors that saved you from future heartbreaks. Failed friendships that kept your focus intact. Unanswered prayers that guarded your soul. When you begin to see from heaven's perspective, gratitude replaces confusion. The voice of God thundered in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 8. The Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. This verse is not just comfort. It is strategy. It reminds you that every closed door has a counterpart. An unseen path where God has already gone ahead of you. When one route sealed, another quietly opened. Often where you least expected. Think of a shepherd guiding sheep through a mountain pass. The flock sees only the fence blocking their way and panics, not realizing that beyond the bend is a steep drop. The shepherd redirects them through a narrow valley. Longer, but safer. You are that sheep sometimes hurt by the fence. Unaware, it saved your life. God's guidance rarely flatters human logic. He chooses preservation over popularity, integrity over instant gratification. Every divine no carries an unseen yes to something higher. The locked doors have been orchestration, not opposition. Sometimes, the door closed because the season ended. Sometimes, it closed because your growth outgrew the room. Sometimes, it shut simply because you were not meant to fit where you once belonged. Heaven promotes by separation before it promotes by elevation. When you look back, you'll notice the pattern. Every major advancement in your life followed a painful closure. You were forced out of circles, jobs, or environments you thought you needed, only to realize later that those exits were upgrades in disguise. Picture a bird inside a cage, left open. At first, it hesitates, clinging to the perch that once felt safe. But the moment it lifts its wings, it discovers the cage was never home. It was training. Every closed door has been that open cage moment, nudging you toward freedom you didn't yet recognize. And so, if you are now facing yet another door that refuses to move, do not pound on it in despair. Step back. Look again. Ask not, why won't it open? But, what is heaven protecting me from? That question shifts you from frustration to faith. The doors God closes are His loudest forms of direction. They say, "Not this way, not yet, not here." They preserve your destiny until the timing aligns with your capacity. When the right door opens, it will not require you to beg or bargain. It will swing wide with peace. The fit will be effortless, the confirmation undeniable, and you will walk through it carrying wisdom earned in every hallway of waiting. So do not resent the sound of hinges locking behind you. It is not the sound of loss, it is the sound of heaven guiding your steps. You are being positioned, not punished. Every closure has been calibration. Someday soon, you'll see how every no became the map that led you to your yes. Until then, keep walking with quiet confidence, knowing that the author of your story wastes no chapter and misplaces no key. You can feel it now, the stirring inside your spirit, the quiet shift that whispers, "It's time to rise." Something within you that once lay dormant begins to move again. It's not anxiety, it's awakening. Heaven is calling you to step into authority, not the loud, boastful kind, but the quiet, steady authority that flows from knowing who you are and whose you are. When God begins to awaken authority in His chosen ones, it rarely starts with thunder. It starts with awareness. The same voice that called Moses from a burning bush calls you now from within your ordinary life, saying, "Take off your shoes. This ground is holy." You begin to realize that your workplace, your friendships, even your pain are sacred grounds for purpose. Authority doesn't come from titles. It comes from intimacy. When you've walked through rejection, when you've fought unseen battles, when you've learned to hear God in the dark, authority becomes part of your voice. People don't just hear your words, they feel the weight of your journey behind them. There was once a teacher named Ruth. She worked quietly, mentoring children who often came from broken homes. She never considered herself a leader. But one day, a student said, "When you speak, it feels like peace walks into the room." She realized that authority isn't always about commanding. Sometimes it's about calming. True power is not about control. It's about carrying the presence of peace wherever you go. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 14, "You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden." Chosen one. You have been hidden long enough. Now, God is positioning you where your light can no longer be ignored, not to glorify you, but to reflect Him through you. Authority looks like compassion that cannot be silenced, truth that stands when others fall, grace that outlasts offense. And when that light rises, it draws others. People will start to look for your words, your prayers, your strength. You will not need to announce your arrival. Heaven will do that for you. Your consistency will speak louder than any title ever could. If this message speaks peace into your heart, press the like button. It's like striking a small match in a dark cave. The more flames that are lit, the brighter the path becomes for others still searching. When you share this message, imagine releasing a lantern into the night sky. You never know whose shadowed valley it will float over or whose eyes it will guide home. Subscribe if your spirit feels drawn to this flow, not out of routine, but like returning to a familiar shoreline where waves of encouragement keep washing over tired hearts. And yes, if one day your heart whispers to give, let it be love's response, not obligation. Think of donators pouring oil into a lamp that has already warmed you. The lamp doesn't demand, it simply glows. Yet every drop of oil keeps the flame steady for travelers you may never meet. Every seed of support carries a ripple. It tells heaven, "This light fed me. I want it to reach further." It's not payment, it's participation in purpose. Authority in God's kingdom is not about taking, it's about giving. It's about becoming a vessel through which blessing flows both ways. You received freely. If ever your heart stirs, give freely too. Not because you must, but because you can. As you step into this awakening of authority, remember, your voice matters. Your prayers matter. Your actions ripple through eternity. Each like, each share, each subscription, each donation is a spark thrown into the wind of revival. And so, as you finish this section, pause. Reflect on how far you've come. You've survived seasons of silence and pruning, and now the call to rise rests gently on your shoulders. Walk in that quiet power. Shine without apology. Speak without fear. And when you give of time, of kindness, of support, do it knowing that heaven sees, records, and multiplies every act of faith. The light you carry is needed. Keep it burning. And as your light steadies, heaven smiles. For every small act of faith, every word spoken in love, builds an invisible bridge between the divine and the human heart. You are that bridge now. Some will see your glow from afar and find courage to rise again. That's the quiet miracle of obedience. It multiplies silently, like dawn spreading without sound. Keep tending your flame. The world grows gentler when you shine. The heavens move closer when you give. The story continues with you. Something is stirring in the unseen. You can almost feel it pressing against the edges of time, like the moment before rain breaks through heavy clouds. For too long, you've walked through delay, wondering if heaven still remembered your name. But this is the hour where the waiting ends and the alignment begins. Everything that once seemed scattered is now converging under divine order. Heaven's calendar is never late. Every setback you faced was secretly synchronized with a higher plan. The unanswered prayers, the closed doors, the missed opportunities, they all played a part in setting the stage for this moment. You weren't being denied, you were being timed. There comes a moment when God says, "Now." It's the invisible click in the spirit realm when heaven's order meets earth's readiness. That moment is upon you. The signs are subtle but undeniable. Peace where there used to be fear. Clarity where confusion once lived. Strength where exhaustion used to dwell. These are not coincidences, they're confirmations. You've stepped into the season of divine alignment, the place where your preparation finally meets your promise. The number that marks this shift is 555, a symbol of grace multiplied, of divine change and completion wrapped in mercy. It represents the full measure of God's timing at work in your life. As written in the book of Haggai, chapter 2, verse 9, "The glory of this latter house shall be greater than the former, says the Lord of hosts, and in this place I will give peace." That verse is not about buildings, it's about you. The house is your life, your spirit, your calling. The glory that is coming will outweigh the pain of what you lost. The peace that follows will silence the chaos that once surrounded you. There was once a man named Tobias. For years, he worked in obscurity, faithful but unseen. Every idea he built seemed to crumble. One day, exhausted, he told God, "I'm done trying." But in that moment of surrender, everything began to shift. The very project that failed before began to succeed. Doors opened, people appeared, opportunities aligned. Tobias realized later that it wasn't his effort that changed, it was heaven's timing. What once resisted him now recognized him. That's what's happening for you now. The same situations that used to push you away will start to pull you in. The people who once overlooked you will begin to remember your name. The rhythm of grace is catching up with your life. And all that was misaligned is being corrected. But alignment doesn't come only through comfort. Sometimes it comes through discomfort that forces you into position. God uses pressure like a potter's hand, shaping your purpose until it matches his pattern. The seasons that broke you were not mistakes, they were adjustments. You are walking into divine synchronization. Heaven is not improvising, it is orchestrating. Every thread of your story is being woven into a larger design that only now begins to make sense. The confusion you once carried is giving way to clarity. You'll begin to see how even your delays carried direction. Pause and look back for a moment. You'll notice that the things you lost were never random, they were released to make room. The people who left were not accidents, they were repositioned so that new alignments could form. Heaven never subtracts without preparing to multiply. This alignment will not demand striving, it will flow naturally. The peace you feel is not ordinary, it's prophetic. It's heaven's confirmation that everything is where it's supposed to be. You're no longer fighting the current, you're moving with it. And in this holy moment, let your spirit respond. Comment, 555 below. Not as superstition, but as an act of agreement, as if saying, I align myself with what heaven is doing right now. That number is your marker in time, a symbol of transition and the fullness of grace unfolding. When you write it, you're acknowledging that divine order has taken over chaos, that your path is no longer random, but ruled by wisdom. The old season of delay is closing. The new rhythm of purpose is beginning. So, breathe. Don't rush the process. Simply rest in the timing. The same hand that delayed you is now accelerating you. The same heaven that once said, wait, is now saying, walk. And you have not missed your moment. You are in it. The wheel has turned. The locks have clicked. The season has aligned. All you must do is stay steady. Stay surrendered. And trust that what is unfolding is not a coincidence. It's a covenant being fulfilled. Type 555 below and whisper it as you do. Not as a chant, but as an acknowledgement. This is my moment of divine alignment. The waiting season has served its purpose. And now, at last, everything falls into place. You didn't notice when the opposition began. It started subtly, like clouds gathering at the edge of a clear sky. The more you moved toward your purpose, the stronger the resistance grew. What seemed like random conflict was actually evidence that something within you had been recognized not by men, but by the unseen. The enemy saw the oil. Oil attracts attention. It glistens, it carries fragrance, but it also leaks under pressure, and that's why the pressure came. Every attack, every misunderstanding, every betrayal, it all centered around what you carry. The enemy does not waste energy on empty vessels. He strikes at those who are anointed because he knows their very presence shifts the atmosphere. When you began to rise, you probably wondered, why is everything harder now? But pressure is the proof of purpose. Heaven doesn't crown without testing, and the adversary doesn't attack without reason. The battles that surrounded you were not random, they were confirmation. We find in the book of Psalms, chapter 92, verse 10, "But my horn you have exalted like that of a wild ox. I have been anointed with fresh oil." That single sentence explains the mystery of your warfare. Fresh oil attracts both favor and opposition. When God refills you, the fragrance spreads, and the unseen world reacts. Every new level of grace awakens a new level of resistance. But the resistance does not come to destroy, it comes to reveal. There was a man named Eliah, quiet and kind, whose only desire was to serve. Each time he advanced in his work, confusion followed, projects failed, allies withdrew, and he felt cursed rather than called. But one evening, while reading that same psalm, he realized, it's not the failures fighting me, it's the oil on me. From that moment, he stopped asking, "Why me?" and began declaring, "Because I carry something worth fighting for." Oh, you've been in the same position. The reason relationships shifted, opportunities dissolved, or even your health wavered was not because God abandoned you, it was because you carry influence in the Spirit. Light always exposes darkness. And when your light began to grow, shadows started to stir. But the oil has purpose beyond the fight. Oil was used to heal wounds, to consecrate kings, and to keep the flame of the temple burning. The attacks, then, were not about stopping you. They were about silencing what your oil was meant to do: heal, lead, and illuminate. Do you remember the times you felt exhausted, yet still compelled to pray for others? That's the oil working through compassion. Do you recall moments you spoke peace and the chaos calmed? That's the oil manifesting authority. It's in you, even when you're tired. Especially when you're tired. Every tear shed under pressure became part of the anointing. Oil flows from crushing. Olives produce nothing until they are pressed. The greater the crushing, the purer the flow. So what you thought was defeat was actually distillation heaven, extracting something precious from your pain. Sometimes, those around you can sense the oil, but don't understand it. That's why you've been misunderstood. Your endurance unsettles people who've never carried a divine assignment. They see your strength and assume ease, not realizing it costs everything to stay faithful. The attacks, therefore, have refined your perception. You no longer take offense easily. You discern. You no longer fear battles. You interpret them. Each challenge became training for the greater influence that is now approaching. The enemy's opposition has only confirmed that you've entered the territory you were created to occupy. You are not fragile. You are forged. The oil has thickened your resilience and softened your heart all at once. That paradox is what makes you dangerous to darkness, strong yet compassionate, bold yet gentle. And here lies the irony. The very pressure meant to break you is what proves you belong. The enemy wouldn't resist what wasn't rising. Your struggles are not signs of weakness, they're announcements of transition. Now you walk differently. You carry a subtle authority that needs no validation. People sense peace around you, not realizing it was purchased through warfare. The oil that once leaked under pressure now flows steadily, controlled and pure. So don't resent the attacks that shaped you. Thank them quietly. Without the storms, the oil would have stayed hidden. Now it shines, fragrant with endurance and humility. What the enemy saw as vulnerability, heaven saw as preparation. The pressure was not sent to crush your destiny. It was the process that revealed it. And in that revelation, you discover something beautiful. The oil that drew the enemy's attention is the same oil that now marks your victory. The wilderness never felt like destiny. It felt like exile. You remember those nights when silence was your only companion and answers seemed to live just out of reach. Everything around you looked barren, as if God had forgotten where He last placed you. Yet, beneath that emptiness, something sacred was happening. What you thought was abandonment was actually training. The wilderness is God's classroom. It doesn't teach through comfort, it teaches through confrontation. In the quiet of that dry land, every false dependency ceases. You learn to hear His voice, not through noise, but through necessity. It's the season when all distractions fade, and only what's essential remains Him. According to the writings in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 2, remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years, to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart. That verse reveals the truth. No one wants to hear, the wilderness is not punishment, it's preparation. God uses isolation to expose what cannot survive the promise. Pride, impatience, fear, they crumble in that dry air. Every trial you endured was a lesson in disguise. Every delay, a rehearsal for endurance. There was once a young woman named Nara who felt called to serve, but was sent into what felt like obscurity. Her friends advanced. Her peers thrived. And she stood still. She often whispered, "Why me?" But in those long seasons of solitude, she learned to pray with depth. Her heart began to change. Her faith stopped depending on results. When the door finally opened, she stepped through, not as the girl who waited, but as the woman who had been trained to lead. The wilderness does that. It transforms wanderers into warriors. It strips away everything false until only faith remains. You may have walked through loneliness, financial strain, betrayal, even silence from heaven. But each of those deserts carved strength into your soul. When you have been through the wilderness, you stop chasing what shines and start seeking what sustains. The barren ground becomes holy because you realize that God was there the entire time, hidden in the hunger, disguised in the stillness. In that silence, you learned what most people never do: to trust without explanation, to believe even when there's no visible evidence, to keep walking even when the map disappears. That kind of faith cannot be faked. It's forged. Look closely at the wilderness now, and you'll see it differently. It was not a dead place. It was a refining place. Like a potter's kiln, it burned away the brittle clay of your former self, leaving only the vessel that could hold living water. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared for the weight of purpose. The wilderness was where you learned the language of heaven. You discovered how to discern God's whispers, how to recognize His fingerprints in detours. It's why you no longer panic when doors close. You've seen what happens when you wait. There's a quiet power that comes from surviving emptiness, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be strong. You have become that power. Every dry season taught you endurance. Every lonely path taught you discernment. You carry the wisdom of someone who has met God in hidden places. You can't rush through the wilderness. It has its own pace. God doesn't measure time there. He measures transformation. When your heart becomes still enough to trust without sight, that's when the season begins to shift. The truth is, the wilderness doesn't end when you escape it. It ends when it no longer defines you. You've learned to carry peace in the middle of uncertainty, hope in the face of lack, gratitude in the absence of applause. That's how you know the training worked. And now, as you step out, the wilderness follows you in the best way. It becomes your wisdom. You walk with calm authority because you've learned that survival isn't luck, it's revelation. You know the one who provides manna when there's no bread, who sends rivers through deserts, who turns silence into strategy. So when you look back at those barren years, do not see loss, see foundation. The wilderness didn't shrink you, it solidified you. It taught you to carry the presence of God wherever you go. And that presence, refined in hidden seasons, is what will sustain you in the days of abundance. The wilderness was not your end, it was your beginning. Every grain of sand that once stung your feet has now turned into ground you can stand firmly upon. You are no longer wandering, you are walking with direction, carrying the quiet strength of one who has been trained by the silence of God. There is a sound that heaven releases before destiny unfolds. It's not a thunderclap or trumpet, it's a whisper. You begin to sense it before you can explain it. A pull in your spirit that says, "Something is calling my name." This is the sound of destiny. And once you hear it, nothing else satisfies. It doesn't shout, it stirs. It finds you in ordinary moments in the middle of traffic, during sleepless nights, or while you wash dishes. It interrupts your routine with quiet urgency. And when you hear it, you know deep within, I can't go back to who I was. Every chosen one has a moment when heaven's call becomes unmistakable. The same God who spoke to Samuel in the stillness, who whispered to Elijah through the gentle breeze, now speaks to you, not in chaos, but in clarity. Destiny doesn't need noise, it needs recognition. As written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 21, your ears shall hear a word behind you, saying, "This is the way, walk in it." Whenever you turn to the right, or whenever you turn to the left, you've been sensing it for a while. The shift, the stirring, the inner nudge that will not leave. You try to quiet it with distractions, but the whisper grows stronger. That's how God speaks when He's about to move you. The sound of destiny always begins as a soft voice inside a storm of uncertainty. There was once a man named Jordan who worked tirelessly in a place that drained his joy. One night, while staring at the ceiling, he heard a thought so clear it startled him. You were made for more. He didn't know what it meant, but he wrote it down. Months later, that sentence became the seed of a vision that changed his entire life. The whisper was never just a thought, it was instruction disguised as revelation. You've had moments like that too. Words that wouldn't leave you. Dreams that felt too real to ignore. Encounters that seemed random but carried purpose. These are heaven's breadcrumbs, guiding you toward your appointed path. Destiny doesn't arrive as a map, it unfolds as a melody. You follow the sound by faith, one note at a time. Each act of obedience reveals the next. You don't need to see the whole picture, just trust the rhythm. Sometimes, destiny sounds like disruption. It calls you away from comfort, away from what's familiar. It doesn't apologize for the shaking because it knows what it's awakening. You weren't made for small spaces. The whisper is not trying to unsettle you, it's trying to enlarge you. When you follow that sound, you'll lose some things. Familiar voice may question your direction, but keep listening. Heaven's frequency is never wrong. The closer you come to your purpose, the clearer the voice becomes. Imagine walking through a fog. At first, you see nothing, but as you keep moving, shapes begin to appear. That's what it feels like to follow God's call. The mist lifts gradually, revealing what was hidden. Each step of obedience becomes light for the next one. The sound of destiny also carries reassurance. You don't need to fear missing it. God's voice knows how to find you. Even if you take a wrong turn, His call will echo again and again until you align. Grace always chases purpose. In these moments, your spirit knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. You sense movement before you see manifestation. That's how heaven operates. Spiritual awareness precedes physical evidence. You're standing in that space right now. The sound of destiny is near. Listen not with your ears, but with your heart. The whisper that keeps returning is not coincidence. It's confirmation. Now, let your soul answer back. Comment, I'm listening. Because when you write those words, you're not speaking to me. You're responding to heaven. It's your way of saying, I hear you, and I'm ready. That simple act becomes agreement in the spirit realm. The moment where response meets revelation. And when you answer, the sound of destiny grows stronger. The whisper becomes wind. The stirring becomes direction. And before long, you'll find yourself walking paths you once only dreamed of. So be still. The voice is speaking again. Listen carefully. It's calling you by name. And when you answer that whisper, everything begins to rearrange. The call does not just change your direction, it changes your perception. What once felt like confusion suddenly feels like clarity wearing disguise. This is how destiny unfolds, one yes at a time. You are not chasing purpose anymore. You are conversing with it. The sound now lives inside you. It begins quietly, the evidence of promises once spoken, now taking form. The prayers you whispered in tears start to show up in the daylight of reality. It's subtle at first, an unexpected message, a reconnection, a shift in the atmosphere that tells you something is finally breaking through. You realize this isn't coincidence, it's fulfillment. What was once only prophecy is now presence. The words that seemed distant begin to materialize in your daily life. You don't have to chase the miracle anymore. It's been walking toward you all along. Every seed you sowed in faith is pushing through the soil at the appointed time. Fulfillment never arrives in the way we expect. It doesn't shout, "Here I am." It comes wrapped in simplicity, a conversation, a door you almost didn't knock on, an opportunity that feels strangely familiar. Heaven's promises rarely enter with noise. They slip in through peace. There was a man named Leor who had prayed for years for restoration with his family. Time hardened hearts, and hope grew thin. But one afternoon, his phone rang. It was his brother. No apology, just a simple, "Can we talk?" That small moment became the hinge of healing. Leor realized that when God restores, He often starts with whispers, not announcements. You've reached that same threshold. What you've been waiting for is beginning to unfold, not in chaos, but in quiet precision. You can sense it. Things that used to resist you now respond easily. The river that once ran dry begins to move again. The book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 23, reminds us, "Let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering. For he who promised is faithful." The faithfulness of God has not forgotten your address. What you're stepping into is not random favor. It's a return on every prayer, every delay, every decision to keep believing when it didn't make sense. The promise was never lost. It was maturing in silence. And now, as fulfillment begins, there's a holy invitation to gratitude. Gratitude, not as performance, but as posture. It's the way the soul says, "I see what you've done, even in what I don't yet understand." Moments like these are worth sharing. If this word resonates with the season you're in, tap like. Think of it as lighting a candle in a long hallway. Your small flame helps others find their way too. When you share this message, imagine releasing a boat into a gentle current. You may never know which shore it will reach or whose storm it will calm, but every act of sharing carries hope into new waters. And if this space has become part of your journey, subscribe to stay connected. It's not just another button, it's a door that keeps this growing circle of light alive. So words like these can continue finding those who need them most. There's also a quiet, sacred choice for those who feel it in their hearts. To don it is not an obligation. It's like returning rain to the cloud that watered you. The cloud never demands it. It simply receives and releases again. When you give, you help the rain fall farther into lives, homes, and hearts you may never see. Every gift, every share, every moment of engagement becomes part of this unfolding story of faith. You are not just receiving encouragement, you are becoming a carrier of it. This is how prophecy turns communal when individual faith fuels collective hope. Think of it this way: you are standing at a river that once seemed dry. Every small act, your words, your kindness, your generosity is a drop of water flowing back into that river, making it strong enough to reach new lands. You are stepping into prophetic fulfillment, and with it comes a shift of purpose. You are no longer the one waiting, you are the one walking in answered prayers. The world around you may look the same, but inside, everything has changed. Peace now replaces pressure. Purpose replaces hesitation. And gratitude replaces fear. So as you pause here, look back for a moment. Remember every delay, every prayer, every time you almost gave up, and see how those moments now fit perfectly into the pattern of grace. Fulfillment was never about speed, it was about shape. God shaped you to hold what He promised. This is the beauty of your journey. The waiting built your capacity. The faith built your endurance. And now the fulfillment builds your testimony. Walk in it gently. Let thankfulness become your crown. And as you go, carry this truth. The promise kept you waiting so that, when it arrived, you would know how to treasure it. There are moments when the air feels different, heavier, charged with something unseen. You can sense it before you can name it. That's how spiritual atmosphere shifts, quietly. Then all at once, you may not see the movement, but your spirit recognizes it. Something in you knows that the environment around you is no longer the same. Heaven is rearranging the stage of your life. The change does not always announce itself with miracles or fireworks. Sometimes it comes through ordinary days that suddenly carry extraordinary weight. Conversations feel deeper. Dreams feel louder. Even silence feels full. The familiar starts to feel too small because your spirit has already expanded into a new dimension. When God begins to shift your atmosphere, it is both unsettling and sacred. He starts by moving what you've clung to: relationships, places, routines that once felt like home. He does not do this to hurt you, but to create space for what is next. Just as the tide must pull back before it returns stronger, so must life pull away from what no longer serves your growth. The shift is not chaos, it's calibration. Heaven adjusts your environment to match the anointing on your life. You cannot stay in an old atmosphere with a new spirit. The vibration changes, and suddenly things that once satisfied no longer do. It's not dissatisfaction, it's divine discontent, a holy restlessness pulling you toward alignment. The apostle reminds us in his second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 5, verse 17, "If anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has gone, the new has come." And this isn't just about personal salvation, it's about transformation that touches everything around you. The old atmosphere must release you so the new one can receive you. That's why you've been feeling the tension. It's not punishment, it's promotion. There was a man named Jonas who worked in a place that once inspired him, but over time, the joy drained away. He prayed for clarity, thinking something was wrong with him. Then, one morning, while watching the sunrise, he realized that God was not asking him to fix the atmosphere, he was asking him to leave it. Within weeks, a new opportunity opened, one that demanded more faith, but offered deeper fulfillment. Looking back, Jonas understood the old space had finished its assignment. You might be in your own Jonas moment. The people, the places, the patterns that once fit you now feel foreign. That is not failure, that is confirmation that growth has occurred. Every spiritual shift begins with discomfort because heaven refuses to let you shrink to stay acceptable. Think of a tree outgrowing its pot. The roots begin to press against the walls, not because they are weak, but because they've grown strong. What once contained you can no longer sustain you. God, in His mercy, breaks the pot so that your roots can spread freely. The breaking is not destruction, it's expansion. You may find yourself waking up with a heaviness that has no name. That's the weight of transition. You are standing between what was and what will be. Heaven is breathing on your surroundings, aligning people and places to fit your next chapter. Don't resist the rearranging. The move may feel like loss, but it's actually making room for greater presence. Sometimes, spiritual shifts reveal who truly walks with you. When the light on your life increases, not everyone will celebrate it. Some will fade, not out of hatred, but because the frequencies no longer match. It takes humility to release people without resentment and wisdom to know that their season has simply ended. There's power in learning to bless what leaves you. Every goodbye that comes from obedience is an offering, not a wound. When you let go in peace, you make space for the right alliances, the people ordained to walk with you into what's next. The new atmosphere will not require you to prove yourself. It will recognize you. Doors will open without forcing. Conversations will flow without performance. The peace you feel will be your confirmation that you are standing in the right place at the right time. So, when the shift feels overwhelming, breathe. You are not losing control, you are gaining clarity. Heaven is simply upgrading your environment to match your evolution. The sound of rearrangement is not chaos, it's creation. Soon, the heaviness will lift, and you'll see that what once resisted you was actually repositioning you. You'll walk into rooms where the air feels different, not because the room changed, but because you did. The shift in the spiritual atmosphere is not coming, it's already here. Step lightly, listen deeply, and let heaven finish what it has started. The air around you hums with expectancy. Something unseen has reached full term, ready to break through the veil between promise and manifestation. You can feel it like pressure before rain, like the heartbeat of heaven pulsing beneath your skin. This is not imagination, it's divine timing. You are standing in the birthing hour. The long waiting, the hidden tears, the labor of faith, all of it has been leading to this moment. The contractions of delay were never meant to destroy you. They were preparing you to deliver what was promised. You were not waiting idly. You were growing a promise within you. Heaven does not forget its own seed. There is a sacred pattern in creation. Before light, there is darkness. Before song, there is silence. Before breakthrough, there is pressure. The season you called pain was actually the final push. Every chosen one experiences this, the moment where surrender becomes the doorway to manifestation. According to the writings of the prophet Hosea, chapter 6, verse 3, he will come to us like the spring rains that water the earth. And hope has been your anchor through every storm. Now, the winds are shifting. The atmosphere carries the fragrance of fulfillment. Heaven is whispering, it's time. And there was once a woman named Miriam who had prayed for a home of her own. Years passed, and every door closed. Yet, instead of bitterness, she started planting flowers wherever she stayed. She said, "If I cannot build yet, I will still make beauty." Then, one morning, an unexpected call came. A piece of land left to her by a relative she never knew. Standing on that soil, she realized that every seed of patience had prepared her for ownership. That's how divine timing works. Slow enough to shape you, sure enough to sustain you. You've carried dreams that others dismissed. You've kept faith when logic said to stop. Those quiet acts of trust have drawn heaven's attention. The pain you've endured has now matured into purpose. What once pressed you down is now pushing you forward. The promise is not distant anymore. It's crowning. Imagine the earth before dawn. The horizon holds its breath as the first hint of light breaks through. That's where you are, the edge of darkness, giving way today. The same way, creation groans before the sunrise. Your spirit has been groaning for release. The waiting was never a delay, it was a womb. And in this moment, heaven gives you a sign, a symbol of completion and birthing. Comment, Shalosh me'ot shaloshim v'shalosh below. Not as superstition, but as a prophetic act. A declaration that your old cycle has ended and a new one has begun. The number itself echoes divine perfection, the fullness of God's presence, and the unfolding of purpose in threes: promise, process, and power. When you write it, let it mean this: I agree with divine timing. You're not forcing the door open, you're acknowledging that it already has. The act itself is simple but powerful. It's your way of saying, I am ready to receive what has already been written for me. You don't need to strive anymore. What's coming will not require struggle. It will recognize you. The opportunity will fit like it was tailored for your spirit. The connections will feel natural. The flow undeniable. You won't chase, you'll attract. Because alignment draws what striving cannot. Even as you read this, heaven is adjusting details, emails, meetings, conversations, timing everything that must move to make this birth complete. The contractions you feel are not punishment, they are proof that delivery is near. So breathe deeply, rest in trust. The birthing hour is holy ground. Heaven has not forgotten a single prayer you whispered. Every tear watered the soil of your promise. Every waiting day stretched the capacity of your faith. And now, what was hidden will be seen. What was delayed will be delivered. What was promised will be placed in your hands. Type 333, not for ritual, but for recognition, because the season has shifted, and your spirit knows it. The waiting is over. The dawn has begun. And as the dawn unfolds, you'll begin to see how every delay was mercy wearing disguise. The detours didn't deny you. They directed you toward the exact moment heaven prepared. Nothing has been wasted. When you wrote 333, you didn't just type a number, you sealed agreement with divine timing. It was your amen in motion. Your silent nod to heaven saying, I trust your calendar more than mine. So step forward now. Not with haste, but with assurance. The promise has matured. The womb of waiting has opened. You're not hoping anymore. You're holding what once was hidden. The sound of new doors opening is not always loud. Sometimes it's the soft click of alignment, the gentle unfolding of a season that finally fits. You may not notice it right away, but heaven is expanding your reach, stretching your borders to include places and people you never thought would hear your voice. The influence that once felt limited is beginning to grow beyond what your hands alone could build. Every destiny has a territory. For years, yours was being measured in silence. God was not withholding. He was calculating, mapping out your path, so that when the doors of nations opened, you would walk through them with character strong enough to carry the weight of expansion. It begins subtly. A conversation with someone from another culture who feels strangely familiar. A message you share that travels farther than you expected. A dream where you see faces and landscapes you've never visited yet somehow recognize. These are not coincidences. They are previews. Heaven often announces new seasons through divine glimpses. You were never meant to remain confined to the familiar. There's a reason your heart has been restless. The borders that once felt comfortable now feel too small because your assignment has grown. The anointing on your life has an international echo. It carries healing and truth that transcend language, geography, and culture. The Book of Psalms, chapter 2, verse 8, records these words, Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, and the ends of the earth for your possession. That promise was not only for kings of old, it breathes over you now. The nations you're being sent to may not always look like countries. Sometimes they are digital spaces, communities, circles of influence that ripple across borders. The divine expansion of your voice will find its way into hearts you've never met. There was a man named Adriel who started teaching music in a small town. He thought his purpose was limited to his local students. But one day, a short clip of his song spread across the world. People in countries he couldn't pronounce began writing to say how his words brought them peace. Adriel never sought fame, he sought obedience. His obedience opened nations. In the same way, your consistency is opening unseen gates. You have prayed in secret, sown in faith, and waited with patience. Now heaven says, it's time to release the sound, not through striving, but through alignment. What you've built in private will soon echo in public spaces. You are stepping into the rhythm of divine expansion. Every gift you carry, your words, your kindness, your endurance is a seed being scattered across the winds of the Spirit. And the wind does not ask permission to travel. It moves freely, carrying fragrance to places where your feet have not yet gone. Do not fear the scale of what is coming. The same God who expanded your calling will sustain your capacity. When doors open in unfamiliar territories, grace will already be waiting there. You will not walk as a stranger. You will walk as one expected. Still, remember this truth. Global reach does not begin with noise, it begins with surrender. God does not seek performers, He seeks vessels. The nations will not be drawn to your perfection, but to your purity, to the unmistakable sense that heaven rests upon you. When influence grows, so must humility. Let the weight of your purpose bend you toward compassion, not pride. What the world needs is not another voice demanding attention, but a heart that listens to heaven and speaks only what it hears. Your journey to this point has been preparation for this expansion. The deserts you endured taught you empathy. The isolation taught you discernment. The waiting trained you to hear subtle instructions. Now, when the doors of nations open, you will not rush. You will walk in step with the Spirit. The expansion is not about fame, it's about fulfillment. It's not about being seen, it's about being sent. The fruit of your obedience will be the lives changed by the overflow of your yes. So, lift your eyes and take courage. The borders of your calling are widening. The same God who began this journey within you is now extending it beyond you. The doors of nations are opening, and this time, you are ready to walk through them. The wind of purpose is already moving, carrying your name into places your voice has not yet reached. You are not chasing opportunity. Opportunity is recognizing your sound. Every step from here is guided. The map unfolds as you walk. Keep your spirit light, your vision clear. The horizon is calling, and heaven walks beside you. You can feel a sacred weight in the air. It's the stillness that comes before revelation. The long seasons of being hidden, stretched, and refined have prepared you for this moment. But this time, you don't rise as the weary warrior who survived the storm. You rise as the crowned one, the one who has been refined by fire and now carries the fragrance of heaven. Crowning is not sudden. It happens quietly, inwardly, long before it is visible. Before the crown rests upon your head, it grows within your character. Humility becomes the gold, endurance the metal, faith the gemstone. When heaven crowns you, it is not for decoration, but for delegation. You are not just being honored, you are being entrusted. According to what is revealed in the book of James, chapter 1, verse 12, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love Him." That verse is not just a promise, it's a portrait of your journey. Every sleepless night, every prayer whispered through tears, every battle fought in silence, they've all been part of your coronation. The pain didn't strip your value, it proved it. The testing didn't destroy you, it distinguished you. There was a woman named Sila who served quietly in her small community. She gave generously, even when she had little. She prayed for others more than she prayed for herself. One day, her story reached people she never knew. Help and resources began to flow her way. Not because she asked, but because heaven remembered her seed. Her crown was not placed in public. First, it began in the unseen faithfulness of her private life. That's what heaven has done with you. While others looked for recognition, you chose obedience. While some chased crowns of visibility, you carried crowns of virtue. You kept your heart soft in seasons when bitterness could have taken root. You stayed pure in motive when compromise would have been easier. And now, the divine exchange begins. Ashes for beauty, mourning for dancing, burden for blessing. The crown does not remove the scars, it redeems them. Every mark on your soul becomes part of its design. The jewels that glimmer on it were forged in pain, polished by patience, and set in place by divine hands. This moment is not about elevation for pride's sake. It's heaven's announcement that your training season has been fulfilled. The authority you carry now comes with grace. You won't need to prove it. You'll simply walk in it. Your words will carry peace instead of defense. Your silence will speak louder than arguments. Your presence will shift rooms because heaven's weight rests upon you. Crowning changes posture, not in arrogance, but in assurance. You walk differently when you know who placed the crown on your head. You don't compete, because you already belong. You don't chase validation, because you've already been chosen. The crowned ones are not loud, they are luminous. Their authority is quiet, like light unforced, yet undeniable. The radiance that surrounds you now isn't self-made, it's borrowed glory, reflected from the one who saw you when no one else did. There's a sacred calm that follows coronation. It's not the silence of emptiness, it's the silence of arrival. You no longer need to fight for space. You are space. The same hands that molded you in pain now place honor upon your life, and nothing can take it away. Let the image of this crown rest in your mind for a moment. It's not made of earthly gold. It's woven from obedience, trust, and unbroken faith. Each gem holds a story of nights you didn't give up, of prayers that reached heaven when your words failed, of kindness offered when it cost you something, and as the crown settles, something inside you finally exhales. You understand that the struggle was never about survival, it was always about transformation. You were never just being tested, you were being trusted. Heaven crowns those who can carry both fire and tenderness at once. So walk forward now, not as someone who hopes to be chosen, but as one who already is. Your crown is invisible to the world, but radiant in the spirit. It does not shout your greatness, it reflects God's faithfulness. This is your coronation. Wear it with humility. Walk with wisdom. And remember, every step from here carries the fragrance of a crowned soul. The season of striving is over. You walk now in quiet majesty, carrying heaven's signature upon your life. The crown is secure, and the story of endurance has become glory. Guarding the promise is not about fear, it's about stewardship. Once God places something sacred in your hands, it becomes both gift and responsibility. You've prayed for it, waited for it, fought through storms for it, and now that it's here, the question shifts from, can I receive it, to can I protect it? Every blessing carries a weight, not the kind that crushes, but the kind that grounds. The higher the elevation, the deeper the roots must go. You've stepped into fulfillment, but fulfillment brings its own warfare. The enemy cannot steal what God gives, but he can distract you from guarding it. Guarding doesn't mean hiding. It means walking wisely, learning which voices deserve access, which paths deserve your steps, which battles deserve your energy. The promise must live within boundaries of peace. As written in the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 23, Abu Ve'alels, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. That verse isn't just advice, it's instruction for anyone carrying destiny. The heart is the vault of promise. If it leaks bitterness, fear, or comparison, the blessing begins to lose its glow. Protecting what God has given you means protecting the atmosphere that sustains it. There was a woman named Liana who had prayed for restoration in her life. When it finally came, she felt overjoyed, but slowly. She started letting old doubts back in. The more she entertained them, the dimmer her peace became. One night, she remembered that verse in Proverbs. She placed her hand on her heart and whispered, "This is sacred ground." From then on, she stopped explaining her peace to people who didn't help her build it. And slowly, the glow returned. That is what it means to guard the promise, to understand that peace is not a luxury, it's protection. You've been entrusted with something precious: vision, influence, purpose, love, and the weight you feel is proof of its worth. You cannot handle holy things with casual hands. You must hold them with gratitude, humility, and care. Sometimes guarding looks like silence. Not every divine thing must be shared immediately. There's wisdom in keeping certain miracles hidden until they've matured. Seeds grow best underground before breaking into the light. Other times, guarding looks like generosity. When you pour out what you've received, not recklessly, but intentionally, you keep the oil flowing. The anointing dries up only when we try to hoard it. Guarding the promise also means guarding your focus. The world will always offer noise, endless opinions, comparisons, distractions disguised as opportunities. But the promise thrives in stillness. Your peace is the soil where purpose takes root. And while you walk in this season of promise, let gratitude guide your expression. If these words have reminded you of what's sacred, tap "like" not as a gesture to me, but as a quiet yes to heaven. It's like lighting a small candle before your altar of remembrance, saying, "I acknowledge what God has done in me." And if something in this word touches your heart, leave a comment below, just a few honest words. Think of it as placing a smooth stone on a sacred trail, a mark that says, "I was here, I heard this, and it spoke to me." Every comment becomes a testimony, a quiet echo that might guide another traveler toward hope. When you share this message, imagine letting one candle light another. A single flame can set 1,000 wicks alight. You may never know who needed that light, but heaven does. If this space feels like a home for your soul, subscribe, not out of habit, but as one who chooses to keep walking this illuminated path together. It's a way of saying, Keep the lamps burning. I want to stay near the glow. And if your heart feels stirred, to support. Let it be gentle and joyful. To don it is like watering the garden that once gave you shade. The soil doesn't beg for rain, it simply receives it with gratitude. Every drop you pour ensures that more souls can rest beneath its branches tomorrow. None of these acts are demanded, they are invitations. Choices made from love, not pressure. When you give light, the light within you grows stronger as you guard your promise. Remember, your generosity is also protection. Every expression of gratitude, whether through sharing, supporting, or simply praying, becomes a fence around the blessing, keeping it surrounded by honor. The promise will keep unfolding, layer by layer. As you walk faithfully, you will not lose what God entrusted to you, as long as you hold it with open hands and a guarded heart. So keep walking, keep tending the treasure, protect the peace that protects the promise, and let every act of kindness, every offering, every word of encouragement you give be your way of saying, I will guard what God has given me. Beautifully and freely, you have entered a rhythm that feels strangely calm. The storms that once raged around you have grown quiet, not because life has become easier, but because you have. Something within you has settled, a stillness born not from answers, but from understanding. You have stepped into the fulfilled promise, the season where faith no longer feels like reaching, but resting. Fulfillment is not the end of the story. It's a new chapter written in peace. You've discovered that the reward for trusting God is not only the promise itself, it's who you became in the process. You no longer strain to see what's next. You walk gently, aware that you are already living inside what you once prayed for. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 37, verse 4, Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desire of your heart. That verse is not about asking and receiving, it's about alignment. To delight in God is to want what He wants, to rest in His rhythm until your heartbeat matches His. And that's where you are now. Your desires have been refined, your prayers purified. What once came from fear now flows from faith. The fulfilled promise doesn't always appear dramatic. Sometimes it looks like ordinary mornings that finally feel light, like laughter returning after long silence, like being able to breathe deeply without worry. It's subtle, almost hidden, but unmistakable in its peace. There was once a man named Elias who prayed for years for direction. When it finally came, it didn't arrive as a voice or vision. It came as peace, the kind that made him stop searching. He realized he was already standing in what he had longed for. The fulfillment had come quietly, clothed in simplicity. That's what God often does. He weaves your prayers into your daily life until one day you wake up and realize, I'm living inside the answer. The home you have, the peace in your mind, the friendships that survived the storms. These are not small things, they are sacred confirmations. Living in the fulfilled promise requires a different kind of strength, the strength to stay grateful. It's easy to praise God when we're waiting, because we're hungry and hopeful. But in peace, the temptation is to forget how far we've come. Gratitude becomes the anchor that keeps the heart humble amid abundance. This season invites you to slow down, to notice details that once rushed past you, the taste of morning air, the warmth of conversation, the quiet comfort of knowing you are seen, chosen, and safe. These are all fragments of heaven hidden in daily life. You no longer pray out of desperation, but out of communion. The words that leave your lips are not pleas, they are gratitude. You speak less, but mean more. You move slower, but carry more weight. You've learned that fulfillment doesn't always roar, it hums. Every promise fulfilled comes with stewardship. The peace you now hold must be protected, not with fear, but with awareness. You know how costly it was to reach this place. Every sleepless night, every surrender, every tear was currency in the economy of grace. And now that peace has finally arrived, you hold it gently, reverently, as one who understands its worth. Look around you. What once felt barren now bears fruit. The same hands that trembled in waiting now harvest with quiet confidence. You've learned to live open-handed, no longer clinging to outcomes, but trusting the giver. There is still growth ahead. Fulfillment does not mean finality. The journey continues, but with a steadier heart. You've shifted from asking when to saying thank you, from striving to abiding, from wondering to knowing. This is what it means to live in divine rhythm. The outside world may still fluctuate, but your spirit remains anchored. You've learned the secret of peace, that joy is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of God within it. So walk softly through this season. Smile often. Let gratitude linger longer than worry. Let joy be your language, and peace your posture. You have seen promise become presence, prophecy become reality, and faith become sight. You are not waiting anymore, you are living proof. Every breath you take is testimony that God finishes what He starts, and that the ones who delight in Him never leave empty-handed. The light around you feels softer now, like dawn after a long night. Every heartbeat whispers gratitude. Every breath reminds you, you made it through what once felt endless. Peace doesn't end the story, it deepens it. You walk forward carrying calm as your crown, living as evidence that patience and faith always lead home. There is a sound that only heaven makes when a promise reaches completion. It isn't loud, but it is unmistakable, a deep stillness that fills the soul, as if creation itself pauses to acknowledge what has been fulfilled. You are standing in that silence now, not the silence of absence, but the silence of arrival. The circle has closed. You have walked the long road, the desert, the detours, the hidden years, and yet here you stand, stronger, softer, more certain. The journey has etched wisdom into your voice and peace into your steps. You've become the evidence of endurance, the living testimony that God finishes what He begins. In this place of completion, you realize something profound. Destiny was never only about reaching a destination, it was about becoming a dwelling place for God's presence. You are not just standing in the promise, you have become the promise. The same hands that once trembled in prayer now carry calm authority, and the same heart that once questioned is now a sanctuary of trust. As the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 8, records, "I have set before you an open door, which no one can shut." Len, this door isn't about opportunity, it's about permanence. It means the season of striving has passed. What's open now cannot be closed, not by fear, not by doubt, not by circumstance. Heaven has settled your position. Completion doesn't erase the journey, it sanctifies it. Every failure you thought Disqualified, you became a thread in the tapestry of redemption. Every heartbreak carved out space for compassion. Every waiting season taught you how to listen. You can look back without bitterness now, because everything, even the painful parts, served a purpose. There was a man named Asael who spent years trying to fix what he didn't understand. He thought destiny was a straight line. Pray, move, arrive. But when the path twisted and stretched beyond recognition, he nearly gave up. Then one night, as he looked at the stars, he realized that constellations only make sense from a distance. Each dot alone seemed random, but together they formed design. The same is true of your story. Every step, every turn, every pause now forms a pattern only heaven could draw. Completion also brings clarity. The questions that once haunted you lose their urgency. You stop asking why and begin whispering, "Thank you." That is the sound of maturity, the heart choosing gratitude over explanation. You can sense heaven's approval in the way peace lingers longer now. It's not the absence of struggle, but the awareness that struggle no longer defines you. The storms you once feared now respect you. The winds that used to shake you now carry your fragrance. You've become unshakable, not because life grew gentle, but because grace grew greater. Complétion change, posture. You no longer rush. You listen more than you speak. You walk with the quiet confidence of one who knows they're no longer being tested, but trusted. And when you meet others still wandering in their wilderness, your words will carry healing, not advice. You'll speak with the tone of someone who understands pain, yet remembers promise. This is the eternal echo of destiny. What God promised long ago has now become visible in you. You have crossed from believing to becoming. The old weight of striving has fallen away, replaced by the lightness of certainty. And yet, even in this completeness, the story continues. God's promises are not circles that trap you. They are spirals that carry you higher. Each fulfillment opens the way for a greater revelation. You're not finished, you're refined. Now, as you breathe in this sacred stillness, let the final realization settle deep. You never walked alone. Every step of confusion, every night of silence, every moment of faith that felt small, He was there, guiding, shaping, and guarding you. What began with a whisper of calling ends with the roar of confirmation. You have become who you were always meant to be. The eternal echo of destiny will keep sounding long after this moment ends. It will resonate through your words, your kindness, your courage. You are not the same person who began this journey. You are transformed, crowned, and commissioned to carry the sound of fulfillment wherever you go. And in the quiet that follows, heaven breathes one last word, not command, not instruction, but affirmation. Well done. The sky feels wider now, as if creation itself leans closer to honor your journey. Every breath you take is a hymn of completion and grace. You walk forward softly, leaving footprints of peace behind. The story lives on, not as striving, but as stillness, a quiet song only heaven and you can hear. And now, as the final word settles, take a breath. Let it sink in that this journey was never about rushing to a finish line. It was always about awakening. Every word, every silence, every moment of reflection has been a mirror, showing you the strength that was inside you all along. You didn't just listen to a message, you lived it. If this story has met you somewhere deep, if it has reminded you that you are chosen, seen, and still becoming, press like. Think of it not as a button, but as a heartbeat of gratitude, a small gesture that says, yes, I received this, and it mattered. Share this message as you would pass on a flame in a dark night. You may never see who it touches, but your light might be the first warmth someone feels after a long, cold season. Leave a comment, a sentence, a symbol, a few words from the heart. It's like writing your name on the shore after a long voyage, proof that you arrived. Each comment becomes a ripple of testimony, reminding others that hope still speaks. And if you feel led, subscribe, not for the sake of numbers, but as a way to stay near this river of words, where light and faith keep flowing. Let this place become your quiet return, your reminder that divine encouragement is still alive here. Finally, if your heart ever whispers to don it, let it be an act of gratitude, not obligation. Imagine pouring a cup of water back into the well that refreshed you. Every drop extends this light further, reaching hearts that might otherwise remain unseen. So, as we close, remember your presence here mattered. You are part of something eternal, light shared, faith strengthened, and hearts awakened.